Welcome back, everybody, to the Card Chatter with Refractor Jones and Bobbles and Ball Cards. This is going to be episode number 20, going in strong, coming in hot, 20 down after this one. Hope everybody has had a great start to their week. This will be the Wednesday episode. Um, as always, we like to begin the show giving a huge shout out to Mason Forelli and Team Mason with Mason's Mission. Been trying to help him raise as much money as possible to pass forward in the fight against pediatric cancer, helping other children that might be struggling as well as their families. So if you don't mind, I will pop the QR code up. If you are able to donate, that would be awesome. If you're not able to donate, you can hit the subscribe button. On the followers that are on the podcast, I see you guys out there. I've been paying attention. If you're listening to the podcast through other means outside of YouTube, hit that follow button or like rate our podcast, whatever. I'm new to the podcast world on that side of things, but you know, give us a rating, give us a follow, let us know that you're enjoying the show. And as always, the YouTube folks comment and join in the chatter. So hope everybody's having a great week. Refractor, how has your week been, sir?
Ooh, tired already, man. Still have that layover effect from the industry not summit.
Oh man, you're tired. So I've heard you say that multiple times. I know we just did the whole decade card thing and everything, and kind of like spilled some beans on stuff. Um, it's not the weather change and like the timing change and just like the age change, is it?
No, man. It's hauling around 8 guys everywhere, going all over the place and doing stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you were being an Uber. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but basically an Uber / designated driver, because I don't drink, so
Well,
these
shout out
guys.
to all the Uber drivers. Refractor is giving you your due diligence, saying he is exhausted after doing doing a similar type thing that you guys do.
Yeah, no,
No,
there's no way that I could do that job, man. I I have a new respect. I mean, I've always had respect for them, but regardless, I mean, this being that little Uber for the weekend really sucked. I mean,
I could imagine. That's one thing I will say. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I don't. I like to tell people mentally, I feel like I'm still young, because I want to be that younger, peppy person, you know.
mm,
But then, like physically, I can tell my old bones are aching and creaking and hurting, like more than they used to be.
mind over
So,
matter.
yeah, well, what I've been doing is I'm like, why is this? And I came to the conclusion my brain wants me and tells me, hey, you're still young, you can do this. So my
Right.
brain wants to tell me I'm still 20,
Yep.
but my bones tell me I'm 60. And then when
Yep.
you average it out, you get my actual age.
Yeah.
That's where I think I'm at right now. So,
For
but
me, the biggest issue that I was having is these guys couldn't make up their darn mind what they wanted to do. Wanted to go here or wanted to do that. They want to see this and they want to see that. So it's like, I got 8 guys and 12 different directions they want to go. I'm like, look, just give me one. I'm like,
yeah.
just tell me. I said, because the clock is running here. I'm going to start charging you guys. Let's do this.
Yeah, I found I used to love like driving and stuff like that. I in fact when I lived in Indiana and I would come back over here to visit, I'd usually at least one time a year, normally a couple times a year, but I would drive. It was like a
Mhm.
10 to in between 10 and 12 hours, depending on how many stops I made and all that. But I would just drive it, and I didn't mind driving. It was fun. I was younger. I used to, when I lived over there, I was like an hour away from Indianapolis, an hour away from Louisville, and an hour away from Cincinnati. So it was a great location. I
Yeah.
would travel to the city, every weekend I was doing something. Now I hate driving. I'm like, over here on the East Coast, just south of DC, I don't know. the people anymore. The way, it's always rush, 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 rush. Um, I don't know. I just can't stand driving. So, but anyway, let's. I have a topic that I wanted to use. Sort of, it's a hot button topic right now. It's getting a lot of buzz in the hobby. But I wanted to just. I don't want this to be about the individuals that are involved in this topic. I want to just speak on the topic overall and like the topic itself.
Mhm.
And then the topics that are intertwined within the topic. So, and I know that's very vague, but there's a lot of like, I'm going to go ahead and say drama going on out there amongst content creators or other hobbyists in the space or what have you. And there's like cat fighting going back and forth, calling this person out, calling that person out, and it's just several different areas. And I'm not specifically worried about the people, but I wanted to get your opinion and views on this because I know I want to kind of like get a feel for is the Maury Povich, is the Jerry Springer, is the is that the type of stuff people are still attached to when watching YouTube or what have you for entertainment? And I mean, this directly relates to us because, we're sitting here and we're trying to throw out a good podcast, some entertainment mixed with some education or, sharing experiences and opinions and all that stuff. So, we're not trying to go down this negative path or this newsy bad, but I find that it almost seems like a lot of people are magnetized to the drama, magnetized to the negative content. And I wanted to get your opinion on that. Do you pay attention to that stuff? Do you pick up the National Enquirer on YouTube? For sports cards, like,
Well,
and there again, there's no specific channel. There's many of them around that have adapted this kind of light or style. So I just wanted to get
mhm.
your opinion. Or do you watch it? Do you follow it? Do you care about it?
Well, controversy always sells. It's one of those two things. It's either sex sells or controversy. And that's it's just the way it's always been in media aspects anyway. So for me, I do hear it, and I obviously I do see it because it comes through, on my feed, because I sit there and I try to absorb as much as I can of YouTube content because of I'm just a hobby guy. I love the hobby in general. So for me, the welfare of the hobby is what's important to me. So yes, I do hear it. I do watch it, and I do see that there are motives out there that some of these content creators are doing to get those views and to get those subscriptions and to be the popular guy and stuff like that. I mean, so so basically, you're going to say that I'm a pumper and dumper then, because I I mean I do a refractor of the day, so I guess I'm a pumper and dumper.
So that was actually exactly something I wanted to tie into this.
Oh, great.
I want to give Flippin' Steve a big shout out. Um, Steve, he kind of buys these. I don't want to call them niche, but he likes his music cards and like these kind of like non-sport type cards,
Uh-huh.
and he shares them on Instagram. And he brought up a question. Does sharing your PC pickups make you a pump and dumper? And it's a very valid question because just as you said, you show a refractor of the day. Well, just because you're sharing a card, or if somebody's doing a mail day video, or whatever else, right? Just sharing, like I post cards, whether they're pickups of my own or cards that we've sent in to be graded. I post cards on Instagram. And I thought that was part of the hobby. Like I thought that's what the purpose of this was. I didn't know that we were just supposed to buy things and keep it a hidden secret. So does that make people pumper and dumper? I mean, or is it more the motive behind the reason they're sharing the things that they're buying?
I really do think that the big issue that that some people are having in general about this is that you see these guys at shows. So I know where they're going with this. So basically what they're saying is if you're a hobbyist and you're just a collector, and we all are not just collectors, let's be real. I mean, I sold some LeBrons. Everybody sells. So but the key thing is here that I believe what people are trying to attack anyway is that, hey, I can see Joe Blow at every show. And why is Joe Blow on the circuit running to, this show, that show, and this show, saying that he's a hobbyist, and I see everything that he buys sitting in his showcase for sale. So I think the disconnect there is what people are having issues with, and they're saying, hey, what, just say that you're a dealer. You buy and you sell, and just if there's no reason to sit there and say, hey, this is part of my PC, and then next week it's sitting in your showcase for sale. And that's, you have every right to do so. I mean, it's your stuff. You do what you want to do, but
I can
you know
I
you're
can
you're
see that point. I can see that point. And I jumped in for a second because I can see that point if the people are proclaiming, if they're buying this stuff because they say they enjoy it and that they're a collector, you know, and then you see them, a week or two later, and everything that they had just posted saying that they were buying because they're a collector is then in a display case with profit margins held overhead. I can see somewhat of the issue there. I can also see there's many people that have just this mindset that everything has a price. Like, I like the card, but if you're gonna pay me and I can make money off of it, I'm gonna sell it. So I can see both sides to that. I'm not like taking sides of which one is right or which one is wrong. I want to make clear of that. But I myself have been in this position where I legit bought a card with the sole intention of keeping it. Like, I bought the card strictly to put it away in my collection. But there's also times where things happen and it happens so quickly. And I'm not gonna say today because the likelihood of it happening today is very slim. But in the period where things were like out of, they were going crazy, it wasn't out of the real, the realm to buy a card. And when it came in the mail, it had substantially went up in value. And the one I'm talking about was, it wasn't a sports card. It was a 1999 base set Charizard and a PSA 7.
Mhm.
And the timing of that card was just weird for me because it was the first time I had bought Pokemon, period. And I bought the card, if memory serves me right, I bought it for 500 bucks, and the guy took forever to ship it. It took 13 days to get to me. It was also when the mail system was slow. It took 13 days to get to me, and by the time I got it, it was over $1,500.
Phew.
And I, as a, I love the hobby, I love collecting, but as a, human, I'm sitting here thinking, all right, 3x in 13 days. This just isn't a normalized pattern here. I might as well let this go because it's going to come back down, right? And that's where
Mhm.
you got to look at things and evaluate, should I let this go because I'll probably buy it, be able to buy it back later. And sure enough, I think the card now is today sitting is cheaper than it was when I bought it at $500. So, um, I guess if there's opportunity there like that, where someone's like, okay, this stuff exploded, let me let it go. Um, it's then just, and I don't keep up with a lot of the ones that are involved right now with the drama stuff. It's just something I've been hearing a lot of talk about. So I thought it would be interesting to discuss it. And again, this isn't taking sides either way. This isn't pinpointing any of the people out there that are discussing these topics. But you know, it's difficult to assume just because you see something in someone's case that they bought it with the intent to inflate the value and then dump it, isn't it? I mean, it
Y-
could be a legit situation where they had dumb luck and they bought
y-
something, it exploded in price and they sold it, right?
Yeah, but not when it's repetitive though. Bobbles. When you're out there and I've been a part of that whole circuit for a long time. That it, everybody has their niche, and everyone's always had their niche. It's never changed. It's always been that way. Everybody is always dove deep in one area or another, and they've specialized. And I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, we knew where to go to find certain cards because we knew certain guys were going to have it. The only difference is that we didn't have, YouTube, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Instagram, we just didn't have social media in general. Our social media was seeing each other at the show, every weekend or every month. That was the way our social media, took place. So I really, really believe that people are having issue with certain guys is that you're saying, oh yeah, I'm buying this this is going to my PC, this is going to my PC, but then it shows up in your showcase the very next week. And I understand that, because I get a lot of people that send me messages every single day on Instagram. Hey, I want that card. I want this. And I try
I
not to post,
experienced that.
I try not to post the big stuff, that I have, because the last thing I want is just to be bombarded. I mean, if I'm getting an average of 15 to 20 a day just for basic stars and semi-star stuff, I can only imagine if I were to put out, the bigger stuff that I have. I mean, I never took a picture of those LeBrons that I had, and I never posted them, one, because I don't like LeBron. But I mean, I could have thrown them out there as a refractor of the day, but I just don't, because I guess people could say that, that I would be a pumper and a dumper because I,
But
you
you're
know, I,
not dumping though.
I don't. I don't, but I mean, but somebody could come and attack me and say that because I've had a couple guys, some trolls that have come to me and say, hey, you're just doing this to, so this way you can start selling all your stuff. You probably have a big inventory of it. And I'm like, and I answer
Well,
them all
duh,
with,
you put it out there that you do.
yeah,
I mean,
I kill them with kindness, because I don't want to be that guy. So I'm like, yes, I have a lot. Yes, I enjoy them. And yes, I will continue to keep buying them. And if you have any, I would be happy to purchase them. I said, but you're not going to ever see me set up at a show because, one, I couldn't sit still behind of a table and not go everywhere. If I was legitimately set up at a show, I'd be the brokest guy set up at that show because I wouldn't sell a single thing, and I'd be buying all kinds of stuff. And I'd probably end up losing half my collection because somebody would end up ripping me off because I was never at my darn table. So
yeah,
you know,
I never realized, like, I guess there's so much to this hobby today, and you mentioned the social media aspect of it that takes its presence today, and I guess sometimes even though I'm connected with it, I am disconnected in some parts because I never realized like how big the selling was on Instagram and I guess Twitter and stuff. But the other day I posted a picture. It was two photos in the same post, but it was the Jalen Hurts zebra select rookie and then the Aaron Judge Chrome X Factor rookie. And I mainly made the post because I wanted to see people, I wanted to start a conversation of who was hotter in the hobby right now. Jalen Hurts has been pretty hot, and then Aaron Judge is, he was chasing 61. I don't think he had 61 at the time when I posted it. I can't remember, but that was one of the questions, like who's hotter in the hobby right now. And then
Mhm.
I posed another question because the zebra has like the wave pattern on it, and then the X Fractor has, the checkerboard pattern. So I was
Yeah.
like, what parallel pattern do you like better? And that was the simple intent behind the post. Like those weren't even my cards. And so I was just sharing them, and I thought it was cool. It was a bright sunny day outside. I took them out there, got the light shined on it so the pattern showed. And sure enough, I got a message. I'm interested in one of your cards. And I'm like, okay, I haven't posted anything for sale. I'm like confused. And I was
Yeah.
like, what's your interest and what card? And they, sent a message back with the picture. And I'm like, oh, that's not for sale. And they messaged back, well, what on your Instagram is for sale? And I'm like, nothing. I just share cards,
Yeah.
just photos of cards. And they laughed. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that this was like the new marketplace or something. This is the new eBay. You post a card up there, you're supposed to put, a price tag or something. I didn't know
Yep.
that's like where Instagram had headed to, because I just literally post cards sharing stuff from the collection. I sometimes I
Yep.
make little designs to go with the cards or whatever, to make little fun backgrounds for it and stuff. But that's just part of me playing with Photoshop and everything, and kind of make cool posts. But I was surprised at that. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess there's many things, even being connected, that you're still oblivious to, because I'll say I've sold one card on Instagram, and it was a card that I did not even have in my hand. And that's the only card, and I had no intent, like it was dumb luck basically. Um in a break, I hit a Contenders Optic, Justin Herbert, gold auto, rookie auto, 10 of 10, so it was jersey number. And I shared a post of the card because I knew it was a pretty nice card. So I shared a post of it, and somebody really popular on Instagram messaged asking if it was for sale. And I was like, I have no clue what this thing's even worth, but you're more than welcome to shoot me an offer. And we kind of discussed pricing back and forth, and I wound up doing a deal with them. I never even seen nor touched the card. So that's the only card I've ever sold on Instagram. But
Hmm.
so back to this, the whole, like, the topic here. I am gonna name drop somebody, and I said I didn't want to get names involved. Is it necessarily the pumper? We're gonna call them pumper. Is it their fault if, just because let's say they're unintentionally, and be I'm gonna try to play fair here and not take sides again. But let's say that they are innocently discussing a player, or innocently discussing a set, or a genre, or cards, or whatever, and those take off. There's a name that gets thrown around more today. Well, not today, but I would say in 2019, 2020, his name was thrown around a lot. Not as much today, but he still does get tossed in the mix. And it's somebody that we've mentioned on the show before. But Gary V. There for a while, anytime, like, I remember a big one was Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna prices went up, and everybody was saying, "Oh, this is Gary V's fault. This is Gary V's fault." He said he made a tweet or something. He liked Ronald Acuna. Nobody attributed the fact that Ronald Acuna was damn close to having 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases. And if I remember right, the tweet was something simple as, "I really like this kid, Ronald Acuna." And then everybody poured this salt Gary's way, saying that he was pumping Ronald Acuna. Is it fair to call somebody a pumper if they like, and I get Gary has a big following, but if he is innocently saying, "I like Ronald Acuna," without any motive to increase Ronald Acuna prices, is that a pumper? Like,
Well,
is people in the wrong for talking about a player or a card or a set or whatever just because they like it?
yeah. See, the problem with that is has that social media presence that everybody sees and hears, that people will automatically assume the negative. People aren't. That's a problem with adults. We've lost our innocence. As a child, you have that innocence and you're pure. A child doesn't see color. A child doesn't see and any type of, let's say, a defect in the world. Everything is sunshine and bubbles to a child, because they have that innocence. As adults, we always gravitate to the other side because we've lost that sense of innocence. So we just go straight to the negative, assuming the worst of people instead of giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it made no sense that people, went ahead and started, going at him and saying, stupid things. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. It's one of those things that you're never going to win again, because people have, again, lost their innocence. People aren't pure enough to just say, hey, maybe he really does, like this guy, or maybe, gee, he has an opinion. I mean, we're all entitled to one. I mean, it
Well, that the
makes no
reason I brought
sense why
him
we feel the need that we have to attack every single person. I mean, it's
the
so
reason
much
I brought
easier to be a nice person than to be a negative person. It really is. It makes no sense that people don't understand that.
the reason I brought his name in and that used an example like that is because just as you mentioned doing the refractor of the day or flipping Steve posting some music cards up and having the question of, is sharing your mail days, is posting on a card on Instagram, is that pumping? Well, that's essentially the same thing as like, if Gary Vee said, I really like this kid, Ronald Acuna, right? I could post a Ronald Acuna card up that I got in the mail. Does that mean I am then pumping Ronald Acuna? I think it's giving unfair, you know, accusations to somebody just based on their social media presence. And I don't think that Gary V, so to speak, and I'm gonna, just simply use his name because I know he's one that everybody's familiar with that's been called out. But I don't think it's fair to him to not be able to enjoy the hobby or enjoy sports or a player or a set or a card or anything, and not be able to speak on it just because
Hmm.
he has a high presence on, you know, on social media. And in that same aspect, you would have to think that these people at times that are being claimed as a pumper, such as Gary, if they really wanted to, why don't you ever see them? And maybe I just haven't seen it, or maybe it's not focused on or mentioned. But if they have the ability to move the market up in such a quick fashion, why don't they ever move it down to their advantage? Because they could literally manipulate it both ways if they wanted to. If they have that much influence, they could they could legit crush a card's value, grab
Hmm.
them all, and then later on push it back up. And maybe this is happening. Maybe it's behind the scenes a little bit. That's where I kind of wanted to like flow into here. Is it necessarily wrong to share a card or talk about a card or post a mail day? Or is the real issue that we have is something that is at times difficult to prove, and that is the shenanigans that happen behind the scenes? Because it I don't know specifically any examples, but I've heard conversations. I've been in chat groups where people have discussed it. We know that there has been certain scenarios that things have been tied to, but is talking about cards or sharing cards or quote unquote pumping and dumping, is that the real issue, or is the buy groups, the cook groups, the people manipulating the values themselves? is that the bigger issue that should be focused on, because that's actual moving the market. Someone saying they like somebody, my issue I have with that, and again, we'll go back to Gary. If Gary likes Ronald Acuna, I say, okay, I like Juan Soto. If I know Gary and his 12 million or how many ever followers he has is going to start buying Ronald Acuna, that doesn't mean I have to follow those people. I can go and then buy Juan
Right.
Soto or Tatis or Pete Alonso or Eloy Jimenez, whoever. People blame someone else because of the rise of a market, but they don't understand the only reason it rose is because everybody went and followed. Like
Yeah.
as you said, we are adults. Just because I say I like chocolate ice cream doesn't mean you can't like strawberry. You know, like we have to make our own choices and be responsible for our own choices here and not say, but so and so said so. Like
Yeah.
that's where the issue is, and
Yep.
and if somebody is pumping it, let them pump it to the moon. It's not going to move unless people are following and listening and not making their own choices on something. So to me, I find the issue more is, how are these prices getting to where they are? Not that anybody is specifically talking about the prices or talking about the cards or whatever. It's how the prices are getting there. And that has to be what needs to be found and pointed out, not just, well, so and so said that, this was a good market to get into. That doesn't do anything for the cards unless people are blindly following what someone else is saying.
Mm-hmm.
So
See, but
what's your feeling on that with the shenanigans?
yeah. See, I revert back to the same thing that I said, though. It's the big issue here, and maybe I'm wrong, but I really do feel that the big issue here is that when people follow other people on Instagram and they see them posting and they see them constantly doing the same thing, and this is what they post about, which I'm very guilty of because I do the refractor of the day. Um, if I were set up at a show and I have a showcase full of just refractors, what what are people going to say about me? They're going to say, oh, well, that's all he does is he pumps up all his refractors on Instagram, and then he goes to shows and he's sitting there selling this stuff. I know that's what people are having the true issue with here, with certain guys, and it's silly. If if you're a dealer, you're a dealer. If you're a collector, you're a collector. Can you be a collector and a dealer? Sure, you can. But what people are taking, to have issues with here is when you're saying, "Hey, I like X, Y, and Z," and next week X, Y, and Z shows up in your showcase for sale, and you're saying that it was a PC when it's really for sale. Everything is marketing. Everything is content, and everything has its space in our world. But I don't feel that guys should be singled out and personally attacked, for liking something. I mean, somebody could like strawberry shortcake for all I care. If that's what they like, fantastic. Because God knows sooner or later I'm going to run into some strawberry shortcake cards, and when I'm buying a collection, at least I know where the hell to sell those things to if I wanted to sell them, right?
Right, there's two sides to the coin, and that's kind of like why I want to discuss this topic. So there's people that legitimately like, and I'm going to throw Acuna out there. There's legit Acuna fans that are going to post their Acuna collection. Or, I collect Michael Taylor, right? Let's
Yeah.
assume, or let's pretend Michael Taylor went off, had an amazing season. People started buying his stuff and it went up. Well, I could be sharing my Michael Taylor cards, but I'm not pumping and dumping because I'm not selling them. I'm not dumping them. If y'all seen me start
Yeah.
going to a show, setting up with a display case of how many ever, I don't even know what my collection is up to now, and all of my cards are in there, then yeah, you could accuse me 100%, right? The thing that I've always questioned is
And that's
the
the problem. But Bobbles, hold on. That's the problem though,
Is
because these
is the
certain
stuff
people that
being
are being
sold?
attacked, that's exactly the issue that is happening. And
Right.
if right, right,
I've
and
always
that's
had the
why people are
question.
going after these. You say,
That's why I said I'm not taking any sides here, and I'm trying to hit this from all angles just as a discussion, because there is something that I have recognized or questioned, right? Simply to what you're saying. A lot of these people, when they're sharing the cards and when they're making the posts, like, and we'll use you as an example. If you were sharing your refractors of the day and showing how many refractors you had and everything else, and you were claiming, or the market, you knew that it was influencing a market in any way. You knew that you had the power to influence people. People were asking you questions. People were interested more and more. And you knew, or there, I guess my point that to get to here, if you really enjoy something, like if I really collect Michael Taylor, I don't want Michael Taylor prices to go up. Like, at the end of the day, that makes it harder for me and more expensive for me to add pieces to my collection. So it's kind of a contradicting statement that if you're sharing something, that's fair game. Like, it's okay in this hobby because that's part of the fun is sharing our pickups, sharing what we enjoy. But if you're noticing that the market is moving and it's becoming more difficult for you to find the cards that you love, maybe you should back off a little bit. But what we're seeing is, as you said, what happens is these folks will talk about their favorite cards or what they're buying. They'll continue the narrative. They'll see the pricing move. And rather than say, okay, well, I love this stuff enough that I'm going to continue buying it, even though that the prices are up, they start selling it.
yeah,
And then they move to the next thing. They move to the next narrative.
hmm
And that I do feel is bad because then you are sharing with the narrative that you really love this stuff, but you didn't love it. Like, I don't know. It's one of those, like, it was important to you until it wasn't important to you.
well,
Until
it
it
was
got to where you wanted it to get.
yeah,
So,
it was definitely important to you, from the very beginning because you loved it. But then it got really important when you started seeing the dollar signs behind it. Again,
and
it's just
defending the sales.
yeah, it's crazy that people want to go after others because of a certain card or just cards in general. It's our hobby, but I get it where people are saying these things because when you see that same person on the circuit and they have everything in their showcase is exactly what they're talking about all day long, that's you're kind of contradicting yourself there. You know what I mean? Just say it. Just say, hey, yes, I'm a dealer, but I love this stuff and I love to sell it and I love to buy it. And if you
I
bring it to
actually, I don't know if anybody caught on to it, um, but coming out of the national, I did a couple videos on the Bobbles channel, discussing vintage cards.
Mhm.
And one reason I did that is because I was seeing some of the influential people talk more and more about vintage cards. And we've learned that the
Right.
bigger the influence, the more market will shift. But we also see, and I don't want to like sound negative here, but a lot of the newer people, if they're unfamiliar with with said space, and then they're getting relayed bad information, not only can they get burned, but that market space can grow and to areas that it shouldn't have been in. Like, the values could increase so much and so rapidly that it's going to lose, right?
Mhm.
So I started doing videos, and not that I have any influence on people, but I figured if some people seen it, they would get, maybe someone else would talk about it or discuss it with their buddy or whatever, because like there was a trend rolling around where data tools were being used to show vintage cards. And that was a key sign that there was an influential person was moving into vintage market. And sure enough, there's been pickups since then. Since the national, there was pickups at the national that I wasn't even aware of. But um, data tools are a vintage buyer's enemy, because they're showing you the last sales, but unless you specifically know the cards, like I was explaining this to somebody yesterday. We're talking about a Mean Joe Green rookie, and I was like, "Look, when you're buying vintage, it's all about the card. Like the statement of buy the card, not the grade, is never more true than in vintage cards, because you could have 4 6s on a table, and all four of them look differently and could garner different values. And
Mhm.
so I'm not a vintage professional, but I do love buying and collecting vintage cards. And the reason I was doing it was to educate and try to help folks. But at the same time, like I don't want anything that I enjoy to go nuts to where I can no longer afford it. That's why my point was, if these people really love what they're talking about, they're not going to push the narrative so far that it then becomes harder and more expensive for them to obtain it.
But
And
I no, but wait a minute here. I really do think that you're. It's not that you're wrong here, but you're not correct either here, because here's the thing. If they're sitting there and pumping that item, and they already have inventory of that stuff, of course they're going to want to keep pushing it and make sure that it gets out there, and the face of it is out there, and the hype is there, so this way they can ask for those inflated numbers on the stuff. Because you can, when you go to that showcase, nothing is at last comp price. Everything is over comp, because
exactly
the
correct.
first thing they're
I
going to
was
say is,
saying
well,
as
my buyback is too much. I can't, I can't get this card again. I
I
mean,
was
you hear
saying
that
as
all day.
a collector's not going to sit here and continue pushing a narrative if there's card like if there I'm not going to sit here and say I love vintage. I want to try to build the vintage Hall of Fame rookie run and
Mhm.
continue like trying to push a narrative to where it starts increasing vintage prices. Or I'm not going to sit and continuously discuss Hall of Fame vintage players and pinpoint cards that are going up, trying to move a market. If I don't have the card already, that's against me. Like, I don't want that. Now, you are
Yep.
absolutely right. If I'm sitting here with 5 copies of all of these guys' cards, then sure, we're going to talk all day, every day about it. We are going to try to move that needle. We are going to show charts and graphs and try to. I might even overpay on cards just to show a higher comp, because then that moves the market and trends it up. Because if I have 10 copies, and even if I pay a stupid price, let's say I pay 50% over the last comp, and
You're
people
still.
start seeing that and it
Yep.
trends the market up, well, then all other 9 copies I
Yep.
had just increased in value. So
Yeah.
I do 100% agree with you there. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the collector that legit loves what they're buying and collecting. I'm not saying they got 10 copies of it. I'm saying they're working on, a specific set or a specific genre of cards or something. They don't want to move that market because they haven't built their collection. Like you said that the Satchel Page 48 leaf Satchel Page is the card that you want. You're not going to sit there and talk and talk and talk and try to move the needle on Satchel Page before you buy Satchel Page.
Yeah.
That was the point I was trying to make. Not
Yeah.
somebody with inventory talking about it.
Yeah.
Inventory goes right back to what you said in the beginning of this episode. Instead of pushing the motive or the narrative of being a collector, just come out and say you're a dealer. If you're a dealer and you have good feelings about a set and you've bought that set ahead of time and you have inventory sitting there, and then you're talking and sharing and teaching people and educating on this set and the coolness of this set or rarity of this set, and you have inventory there, good for you. You did your homework, right? You've built your inventory, but you're not sitting there playing the cards of, I'm a collector. I love this stuff. I want it in my collection. And then doing the narrative of all of it so you can then take it on Saturday and put it in your display case. So I 100% agree. There's different sides to it, and they need to just say, am I a dealer or am I a collector? Do I love this stuff because it makes me money, or do I love this stuff because, you know, I love the player or what have you? So I 100% agree. There's different narratives involved.
Right. So you see how that I build the 93 finest basketball refractor set.
Yep.
And I constantly build that set. So there is one card in that set that is the
a unicorn.
One, that everybody has to have, that a lot of people don't know, and I don't go out there and go sharing that information, because it's taken me years to understand where that card has come from and where it's at now. And of course, I'm not going to sit there and publicly go out and say, hey, this card is the card to have. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I haven't shared that information, but I've shared that information to people that, one, that I consider friends, two, to people that are actually building the set, because I don't act like, hey, I can be the only one that can collect these and buy these. Like at the National, I met some guys that were fans of that set, and yes, I went out of my way to make sure that they understood how rare that unicorn was, and when they see it, they have to buy it, because if they don't, they're not going to see it again. And that's, I believe that's where being if you were a dealer, that's where people would accept you a lot more at face value of who you are, instead of saying, hey, you're just a pumper and a dumper. Because if I had the 93 finest refractor sets, my 15 sets sitting in a showcase just every weekend, there, and then I'm throwing them on Instagram every other day, or a piece of it every other day, and they're for sale, but then the price keeps going up on the darn things, people are automatically going to think that, hey, I'm a pumper and dumper. But if at face value, if I was that guy who wanted to legitimately help you understand the set and understand what cards are short printed, what cards are regional short prints, this and that, and how they became that and how they were distributed, I believe, one, you're doing a good service to the hobby, because you what you're doing is engaging others to be more interested in that card or that set, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, people are very cynical, and they automatically assume the worst of people, instead of taking them and saying, hey, you know what, maybe he really does love this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know the card you're speaking of. It's not a star player or anything like that,
Right.
and I'm not going to throw it out there, but I'm going to say it's almost like the '86 Fleer set, because I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's Johnny Moore.
Johnny Moore, yes.
In a PSA 10 is very, very low pop. It's a very card difficult, just the same as the Kareem sticker. The folks who have stacked those cards up and just flew under the radar with, I mean, think about it. Like, how many people were going to go out there and buy up a crap load of Johnny Moore 86 Fleers to try to get the 10s? Well, now the people that did do that did recognize the population of that card, did recognize the significance of the 86 Fleer set, did recognize people were going to be building those sets, and in order to complete a set, you need Johnny Moore. Those were smart people, and they wouldn't have been able to continue obtaining Johnny Moores and PSA 10 copies of Johnny Moore if they had been out there showing all of their Johnny Moores and how much the sales were and this and that and the other, and the importance of the card, right? It's known today because, there's people sharing more information. And again, there's a guy that has, I don't know how many of those PSA 10 Johnny Moores, but I applaud that man, because he put in a ton of work to build that inventory of them. And now if he chooses, he can set his own price
Yep.
because he has the majority of them,
Yep.
and the others that exist are likely in sets. So if somebody needs one, he can either be a gentleman and give a gentleman price, or he can say, I want X amount of money because you're not finding this card anywhere else. And
That is
that's fair
correct.
play. That's not pump and dump. That is controlling the market.
Yeah.
That you could say that, but it's
Sure.
not pumping and dumping. That's, I did my homework and I beat you to the punch. And I have to applaud those people.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think this is a great conversation. I know you have a function you have to attend to. So we'll leave it here. But everybody out there, all the listeners, please comment below. Tell us your thoughts, because I think there's different angles to look at this topic. And again, we're not taking any sides here. We're not pinpointing any situation, because I know there's a current one going on, and this is actually not the first time this has happened. That's why I tossed Gary out there, because Gary's name was Vegas Dave was someone that's been accused of pumping and dumping and everything. So there's many people. This has been going on for a while. And it's just we wanted to discuss the topic of it, not the individuals, not the current situation, the current headline on the National Enquirer. We wanted to just talk about the topic itself and kind of look at it from different angles and how different scenarios could play out in different ways. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you comment below, join in the chatter. And as always, we do thank you and hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.